Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thanks for joining us. Hit that subscribe button. So as space agencies make the gradual preparation to send humans out on deeper space missions, longer missions, even to other planets or the moon for long-term durations, there's a lot of study on how we can handle that, living in a confined area like that. And our next guest has a little bit of experience. She spent 4 months in a dome in Hawaii as part of a simulated Mars mission. In her book, Once Upon a Time, I Lived on Mars, Space Exploration and Life on Earth, chronicles that experience. Welcome to the show. We have Kate Greene. Kate, thanks so much for being here with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
So if you could, give us a little bit of background on this mission that you joined, and maybe what made you want to go experience this for 4 months in a dome in Hawaii?
Sure. Well, High Seas is a project that lasted from 2013 to 2018, and there were missions of duration from 4 months to a whole year. And the whole purpose of it was to test the psychological challenges of an isolated environment, like what a Mars crew would experience, hundreds of millions of miles away from Earth. So what made me want to do this was, I was a science journalist at the time, and I didn't have any big projects on the horizon, and I thought it would be interesting to feel like what it would be like to be an astronaut. I'd always wanted to be an astronaut as a kid. I guess I should admit that as well.
And so you moved in there, and how many people were living in the dome with you? And to get a context, like how big is this area?
Sure. This was our crew was 6 people, and the dome is about the size of a 2-bedroom apartment. It's pretty spacious when you walk in because you have that big open space above you, but there's also a mezzanine area. And there were some pictures there that you saw of our staterooms, which are basically the size of walk-in closets. So we didn't have a lot of personal space. Most space was shared space.
When I think about even going on a road trip with someone for a long time, sharing a car with them, there's eventually that point where you either start gelling or you start not getting along. For you, what was one of the biggest challenges of living with 6 people in such a small space?
Well, something that was somewhat challenging, but also kind of wonderful, was the fact that we all came from so many different backgrounds. So there were only a couple of us who had English as our first language. And what that meant was we were always kind of trying to understand each other, and you couldn't really easily fall into assumptions. You had to make sure you understood exactly where other people were coming from. Also, by and large, you're just talking to the same people day in and day out for 4 months. We're all eating the same meals, wearing the same clothes over and over again. There gets to be a lot of sameness to it. And one of the big aspects of this mission is that there's a communication delay implemented, which means that we couldn't talk to anyone in real time. Like on Mars, there would be 4 minutes to 24 minutes of a delay in communication. So my crew, these 5 other people, were the only people that I had real-time conversations with for 4 months.
One of the terms that you bring up is this term, if I'm saying it right, techno-schmers. Could you talk about what that means? What is techno-schmers?
Well, it's this idea that kind of occurred to me. There's a concept called Weltschmerz. It's world pain in German. But it's more than just pain. It's truly anguish, and it's one definition is when the way that you want something to work, the way that you expect the world to be, simply is not that, and in that gap is this pain and anguish. And I was noticing it, especially on this mission. You expect technology to do one thing, to maybe connect you to people at a distance, and then when it fails, when it's trying to be a good social tool, and then it fails in being a good social tool. So we all experience this, from dropped calls to text messages that take too long. Someone who takes too long to reply to a text message, or Facebook giving you a picture of someone who's died, as a fond memory. This is where you want the technology to do a good thing for you, but it does the exact opposite. And in that gap between your expectation and what actually happens is this pretty severe pain. And I got to thinking about, on a Mars mission, that these sorts of systems should be really carefully considered, because you're further from Earth than anyone's ever been, and the loneliness is kind of, it's something that no one's ever known. And so if you have these technologies that are failing in this way, it could actually make the situation a lot harder than it would need to be.
I didn't even think of something like that. Now I absolutely know what you're talking about with that term. I've definitely experienced it. Well, and you talked about that, people being traveling to Mars, and it's what, a minimum 6 to 8 months. So you figure a mission, even if they got there and got back, we're talking like 3 years probably. What
Yeah.
do you think the biggest obstacle is going to be as far as mental health and mental wellness on a trip like that?
I mean, there are well documented issues that crop up in isolation, and this is such an extreme isolated environment to be in a capsule with people for 6 months, and then you're on the surface mission. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, the excitement and the glory is, it would be something so spectacular that you have something to look forward to, and then you have something very real that you're feeling. But in study after study that's looked at Arctic explorations and Arctic isolation missions, you see that people begin to distrust information from the outside. There's an us them phenomenon. That's something that happens. And then you also just get the micro irritations that grow macro over time. So the way that someone clears their throat, for instance, or if that happens a lot, or just anyone's personal ticks, tapping a pen on the table, that's gonna grow really large over time. So one of the biggest challenges is making sure that you get some people who understand how to see those annoyances and truly let go of them for the sake of the mission. It sounds like an easy thing to do, but I think it's a little bit harder in practice.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine. I can already think of all my pet peeves that I need to learn to get rid of. One thing that you talk a lot about too is the importance of good food. Can you tell us why food is such an important factor for something like this, like long distance space travel?
Sure. Well, okay. NASA knows that astronauts tend to eat less over time on ISS missions, and the reason for that isn't very clear, but it's a real problem because if you take in fewer calories, it makes you more prone to disease or bone loss and injury. And so, yeah, the thinking is you definitely want to make sure that astronauts are eating as many calories as is healthy for them. And so one thought is maybe once you get back to Mars when you have gravity, wouldn't it be great to be able to cook, to make novel meals, to get some different flavors other than the pouch meals that you've been used to, and also to have some sort of celebratory aspect of the mission, with food, make a cake, or if it's someone's birthday, make a special pizza or something like that, a stir fry, anything, that's just unusual and fun. And food has a really important psychosocial aspect to it that brings people together and helps for crew cohesion. So there's a lot of interest in looking at the food systems on Mars and how they might be good, not only for astronauts' emotional health, but also mental health as well.
What was the first meal you went and got when you left the dome?
Oh my gosh. Well, we had trays of fresh fruits and vegetables, which I hadn't had in 4 months. So I was eating a lot of crunchy carrots and pineapple.
Nice. Well,
Yeah.
Kate, I want to remind everybody too, your book is Once Upon a Time, I Lived on Mars, Space Exploration and Life on Earth. Available now for people to get that. And thank you so much for joining us here to talk about this and share your experience. It's so exciting and experiences and what you've gone through is so beneficial for everybody. And I really appreciate you sharing just a little part of it here. We've also got an article at digitaltrends.com too, where you did an interview for us, and we've got some more information there for everybody. Kate, thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me.